Andy, nothing says happy birthday like you walking out the door in the morning and you seeing a big pile of dog poop right by the front door. I
Steve,
mean,
happy birthday. That's quite the way to wake up and celebrate turning a year older.
it was quite a thoughtful gift by my dog. I
Yeah.
know he was holding it in for some time and he just left that for me. So as I go out on my morning walk, Andy, but I usually go out for my morning walk and then I take him for a walk. It is biting cold here.
Yeah.
And but I just noticed that like right by the front door was that pile of poop for me.
Well,
He's very thoughtful. At least he put it by the door.
yeah, he places so you'd see it and be aware of it. So first, Dave, happy birthday to you. I'm sure that I'm joined by all that are listening and wishing you nothing but a wonderful new year of life here. So congratulations on living through another year. That's getting increasingly hard to do. So hey, happy birthday, man, and we're happy for you, and may you have a great blessed year. I'm sure it'll be filled with tons of dog poop. So, that's part. It's cold enough, Dave. I'll come back to my dog in a second, but like that poop hits the ground hard right now. I mean, when they drop that, it's pretty cold out there.
Yeah, it's you walk on the ground and you get that crunchy feeling, and
Yeah.
it is biting cold. I had to have my layers on for sure, and I still felt cold.
Do you,
Um,
do you normally walk the dog topless? Is that
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, all
I
right.
mean, you saw the guys in Buffalo this weekend, right? Buffalo and Kansas City, they like
Bill's
minus
Mafia,
30.
man, they're insane. They're
I,
insane.
I tell you what, I'm not quite sure I'm ready for that, but yeah, topless for sure. I mean, is there any other way, Andy?
I'll tell you, my dog likes to go. I've got two dogs, and one of them does not like the cold. The other one, like she sees it, and then she dives headfirst into it and just rolls around completely joy filled over and over again throughout the day. Like it's like every time she finds snow, it's like discovering gold, and she just bathes herself in it, and then looks at me like, "Hey, what's up? Why aren't you doing this?" And so it's interesting how different people and different creatures react to these cold weather. I'm not a fan. It's extremely cold here. I had to shovel yesterday. I was complaining about that, even though it was a very light, easy lift. God bless the folks in Buffalo and Michigan and other parts of the country that deal with this stuff on a regular basis. I'm grateful for Virginia's milder winters.
Yeah, I'm torn. Obviously, spent the time in Florida. Did not I enjoyed the weather there, but I'm not like I like the seasons, right? So it was great that we got to move to Charlotte, where we got the seasons, but we don't quite get any snow. The year we moved up here, we got some snow. Like one of the first weekends we were here, my daughter had never seen snow before, so she
Yeah.
got to build snow and a snowman and do some snow angel stuff. So that was fun for her, but since then, last year Charlotte didn't have any measurable snow, and this year's not looking so good either. So, but quite cold. So,
Seasons are overrated. I'm fine without experiencing winter ever again. My youngest son is in Florida, and he reminds us daily of how much better the temperature is down there than it is up here. So, and he's right. He's right.
yeah, it is quite enjoyable down there for sure. So, Andy, a lot to get into today. A lot of follow-ups from Monday when we left the podcast Monday.
Yeah.
We still had two playoff games and we had the Iowa caucuses. Where do you want to start, Andy? Where do you want to go to Iowa first? You want to go finish off with football? How do you want to go, Andy?
I don't think I can stomach Iowa first thing in the morning. And I think
Okay.
it's a great state of Iowa. No disrespect, but just the idea of politics is just like we'll talk about it. I don't even want to talk about it. So happy to talk about the NFL and the debacle of the Eagles game. I mean, the tragedy, right? I mean, Steelers. I mean, Dave, everybody knew Steelers were going to lose, but man, Philly, come on. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? How do you want to hit this today? It's
It, it, it was it was a double whammy for Pennsylvania there. They had, the Steelers, though I think everybody knew what the Steelers were. They don't really have a quarterback. Look, I think this playoffs was the first round of playoffs kind of sucked. I mean, I think it's because we have all of these bad quarterbacks. And I find it just fascinating that, we have 32 professional teams, so you're carrying 64 quarterbacks, and then you have, maybe a third quarterback in the wings somewhere just on reserve. But we don't have 100 good quarterbacks in this country that can play professional football. I mean, we have 300 college teams of varying levels. it just it's fascinating to me. And, Mason Rudolph playing over your number one draft pick. Kenny Pickett was healthy for all intents and purposes, but they went with Mason Rudolph, who didn't play football last year. And now granted, he was good for games this year, but that was because their quarterback play was so bad, everything else. So, like, I didn't like the Kenny Pickett pick where they picked him.
Wow,
Pickett,
that was a lot. Good job.
the Kenny Pickett pick where they picked him, but he was their quarterback, and now they're not. And so that was pretty much to be expected. The Eagles, though, this needs to be dissected and studied. They were 10-1, Andy. They were the best team in all of football.
Yeah,
And now, granted, some of those games were everyone was wondering how they're doing it, but they were still 10-1. You still have to win 10 games. And then it just all fell apart. And of course, you pointed out Matt Patricia being the defensive coordinator. That's never going to work out in your favor.
right.
But like they couldn't even move the ball offensively either. So I mean, it's challenging for the Eagles, but the NFC East wound up being not very good this year.
Yeah, I mean, from a strong start for the Cowboys and the Eagles to drop out and have nobody left in the playoffs, very interesting, and definitely, sorry for the great state of Pennsylvania, wonderful state, both Pittsburgh and Philly being, great cities. I've only been to Pittsburgh once, but I enjoyed it thoroughly just recently this year, I think, and Philly lived there for a year. Love that city, love the people, love the team, even though they're, not the Lions. But yeah, tough loss here. But on the quarterback play, I think a lot of that depends on where you're looking from, Dave. So I understand as a heartbroken Cowboys fan, I can see your perspective, but at the same time, you've got C.J. Stroud playing phenomenal football. You've got Jordan Love, like I mean, just in the last half of the season, really developing into a legitimate and very dangerous threat. And there's this guy in Detroit that's playing pretty top tier football as well, Jared Goff. I don't know if I feel the same way about the quarterback play or the first round of the playoffs. I was pretty happy with the Detroit Lions win over the Rams, and I'm feeling pretty good going through divisional weekend here. Maybe the best weekend of football, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think a lot of it depends on your vantage point. But I hear you. I feel your pain. I don't care for it, but I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, I think it's just the Lions game was the best game of the weekend, and when you go back and look at it, you brought up a really good point on Monday about Sean McVay about not really going forward and pushing himself. Like I think he did cost his team there. The in-game decisioning was really tough. But the Lions are really strongly positioned here. They play, I think, an underrated Tampa team. Like that team plays good defense, and they are playing a lot better on offense. The question is, can they do to Baker Mayfield, who is already hurt, what they did to uh, uh, Matt Stafford? And if they can do that, I think they're going to win. But man, that's a not to be overlooked team for sure. So
Yeah, I mean, I think they're. I don't think they're as strong as the Rams. I think they played. They looked better than they are against the Eagles. The Eagles are just really struggling right now. Um, Baker's similar to Matt Stafford. They're both really tough, gonna get it done guys. They're gonna do their best to get it done. They're both prone to big failures too. Though they can both cough up the ball. Baker had a good night against Philly. I think really in that game. Maybe we'll talk about this more on Friday and some predictions and whatnot. But I think for the Lions game, it's going to be can the Lions O line protect Jared Goff? Can the Lions D line get after Baker Mayfield? And if those two lines are successful, the Lions win the game. And if the Buccaneers surprise, I would say, and win the battle in the trenches, then the Bucks have a fighting chance. So it's good. The Lions should win that game. They beat them earlier in the year with some bang ups at running back. I don't think the Bucks are really much better than they were. I think the Lions are. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it was a good divisional round. The congratulations to the Bills, right, from being almost not in the playoffs, not unlike the Texans, to now being, I think, the third favorite, and by Vegas odds to win the Super Bowl. They're playing good football at the right time, but Kansas City is going to come into town and beat them. So it's going to be kind of funny to watch that happen yet again.
yeah, I know all the Buffalo fans are like, finally, we get Kansas City on our own turf, and we can do all this great and wonderful things to them. Bring on Taylor is the chance, and all the signs and such. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be cold there, but again, I don't think that gives Buffalo any more of an advantage over Kansas City than anything else. So that's going to be really interesting. I will be very interested to see how the number one seeds come out and play. That week off. And not to mention, both of them effectively took a bye on the last week of the regular season. So it's been 2 weeks
Yeah.
for some of these players. It's always interesting to see how they come out. And are they gonna be as crisp and as sharp, and are they gonna be ready to play Lamar for all that he's done in the regular season? And he will be the MVP, but he does have that playoff lack of success kind of hanging over him. I do think this is a different Ravens team. They're built differently, but you still have that. And then you go to San Francisco and they're playing a Green Bay team that is as hot as anybody else. I mean, you say people talk about Buffalo, but Jordan Love, I think he's got like 22 touchdowns and less than 5 interceptions over the last 6 or 7 weeks. He's playing great football, and they're really hot right now. And look, they play without any reservation. Like, what do they have to lose? They're the youngest team in football, and they're going against the prohibited favorites in the Niners. So that maybe that's a trap game for the Niners. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it should be exciting. I think the Packers could win that game. I think they have a fighting chance, and I think the Texans could win their game. I think the one seeds will pull it out in both cases. But I think we're in for a good weekend of football here, and it's gonna be fun to watch. So maybe we'll go back and do some predictions here on Friday, Dave, and see what we're gonna call.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds like a good idea. Andy, one thing I want to touch on here, and this is kind of um, maybe it's overreactions to the games and such. Look, Jordan Love's been a really good quarterback, and he's definitely shown the value in the Packers selecting him when they did, and then just like they did with Rodgers, he sat for 3 years and then he came in and did it. But can we not proclaim him like the next Hall of Famer already? Like everyone's already saying, what have the Packers done? They had Brett Favre, they had Aaron Rodgers, and now they've got Jordan Love. This is like everybody's willing to put like said, all right, he's already going to have the next 15 years of Pro Bowls and MVPs and so on. Can we just put the brakes on that just for a minute and say this is his rookie year? I mean, next year a lot we've had a lot of great people who have been rookies, but Dak Prescott had a great rookie year, and 5 years later, I'm wondering, yeah, like it's been a great rookie year, but it's been ups and downs, but he's not going in the Hall of Fame. Can we just stop with Jordan Love right now? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement about. I mean, it is phenomenal to see them, have this young man who, I mean, you're saying rookie year in the sense he's playing for the first year, but he's been there, right? And so, I mean, Green Bay has seemingly done a really good job of finding this young talent, nurturing these guys on the bench for a little bit, and to see him come in and play, it's just sort of, I mean, even as a Lions fan, I'm like, wow, this guy's playing great football, and to see them do it again, right? To go from Favre to Rodgers, potentially to another, dominating quarterback. You're right. I mean, it's still early on. Who knows where his career is going to go? But it's exciting for Packers fans and the NFL to see another talent there in Green Bay. And I think part of it too is like Aaron Rodgers is a tool. Brett Favre turned out to not be such a great guy. I think Jordan Love's actually really likable too. So I think people are just excited about him. And again, seeing this very young team, even Matt LaFleur, who I gave a lot of crap to Matt LaFleur because he's just riding Aaron Rodgers. But I think he's really proven that he's also a young, successful coach, and I got to give him credit. He's doing a really good job with a really young team, and maybe he just needs to sort of get Aaron Rodgers away from Green Bay to really show who he is, and he's doing a really heck of a job. So, I mean, look, the NFC North, the old NFC Central has three teams in the NFC divisional round. By the way, like the Bucs used to be part of the Central back in the day. Pretty cool, right? But the NFC North is shaping up to be a very strong division next year with the Lions, the Packers. I think the Bears are positioning themselves well, and the Vikings are still a threat if they re-sign Kirk Cousins. They could be a challenge next year too. So it's fun to see that kind of talent. So I hear you on Jordan Love, but it's exciting to see a young player do well, just like C.J. Stroud, right? I mean, he's still got a long time to go, but right now playing some pretty excellent football. It's fun to see young talent like that.
So I'm wondering, Andy, and this might be a weird transition as we go from sports to other topics, but is this the state of punditry that we have in this country, where it's not about like news so much anymore? It's about opinions and what types of clicks we can get and hit rates we are going to get on our platforms, and try to cause a commotion and take these proverbial hot takes and such. We have that, and then we have the news in Philadelphia about Nick Sirianni and how this is a guy who last year was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Everyone was singing his praises, telling what a great coach he was. This year they're 10-1. Everything's great, and now all of a sudden he's going to be fired. And there's a question even posed to Jalen Hurts about whether his coach is going to be back and thoughts on the situation. And Jalen's response was, "I didn't know he's going anywhere." Like, is this just is the media? Like, look, they do it on a lot of different fronts now, and I think it's rabid on the political front. And I think that's causing some of our challenges as a country. But um, is that the state of punditry? We have to take a stand, and we have to proclaim that these people are going to be the next this or the next that, or look, I listened to a podcast the other day, and they're trying to recount a story, and they're inserting white supremacy into it. I'm like, wait a second, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Just because a black person was killed or a Latino was killed doesn't mean there's white supremacism somewhere. It could be a lot of different factors, but yet these things are being injected into our narratives, and for listeners, it causes us to take either or. You talked about this several months ago. I don't know. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, there is some clickbait sensationalism, in I think in all topics, sports and otherwise. In Philly, I mean, I think it's fair frustration after the collapse. But one, to Sirianni, I think people have to be, you know, losing both coordinators is really tough, right? And
Yeah.
even if you're a great head coach, like I'm scared for the Lions next year, who might be out both of their coordinators. That's tough to, it's tough to maintain that ship's, trajectory if you lose both those guys. It's really tough to do. So I think you would give Sirianni a year and let him sort of rebound, right? Get Matt Patricia out of the stadium and see what he can do. But at the same time, again, I was talking with my youngest, who's an Eagles fan, and he raised the point that, hey, if the Eagles could get rid of Sirianni, and if they could hire Ben Johnson from the Lions, who will be head coaching somewhere next year, like, do you take that chance, right? Because Ben Johnson is proven himself to be a dynamic offensive mind. He's probably going to be a good head coach. He's positioned himself well to do that and to take that next step. Do you pass on that opportunity, or do you say, hey, we've got a great team, a lot of talent. Let's get this guy over here and let's quickly rebound. It's a big decision. Philly's got to think through those things. I think it's a fair question to ask because they really did have a devastating collapse. But if you're asking me, I think Sirianni deserves another year of opportunity. The guy was in the Super Bowl, almost won it last year. I don't think you fire a guy the next season. They still almost won the division. They still got 10 wins, 11 wins, whatever it ended up being. They still got into the playoffs. Ugly, but they did it. But there is a lot of sensation. There's a lot of clickbait excitement, especially around politics. And Dave, maybe it's time for us to talk a little bit about that, even though we don't really want to get into it. Maybe we should talk about the little sensational stories coming out of the great state of Iowa.
Oh yeah, let's definitely transition to that, Andy. um, so as we left Monday, the caucuses were going to occur, and as expected, Donald Trump ran away with things. I think to a larger degree than most people were predicting. A lot of people were wondering if he'd get to 50%. He exceeded that. He lapped the field. It was as it was. Trump dominated. Nikki Haley came in third. She was I think about a point behind Ron DeSantis. I think again, as expected, a lot of things came up. VR dropping out of the race. And then now we're getting all the stories that Trump is, everyone's asking VR to be the VP and all this other stuff, and Trump is saying we're going to work together for a long time and all that stuff. Andy, can I proclaim that the Grand Ole Party is? Can we play taps for the Grand Ole Party? I think that party is dead. I think it is the party of Trump. I was optimistic that Nikki Haley was going to make some run. She still may. I mean, it still may very well be there. Maybe that was more of my bias coming through, wanting to not be a Trump in office again. Even Biden, I don't want either one of them in office again. But can we proclaim them dead, or is there some sort of what's your takeaways from Monday?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of takeaways, I think, from Monday. I mean, one, I don't think the results in Iowa were that surprising, right? And then two, I think they're tough to read because of the extreme weather that occurred. That did change, voter turnout. And look, hey, say what you want about Mr. Trump's supporters, they're passionate and they came out to support their man. I don't know that necessarily Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley had that same level of enthusiasm with their supporters. I mean, if I was in Iowa, I don't know that I would have gone out and made that trick, to caucus. So, could that have been a couple points here or there? Could have been. I mean, but overall, the results weren't shocking, right? Nikki Haley was a close third. She was, Ron DeSantis was ahead of her most of the time there. I think all the time there. So it's, maybe not shocking. As far as the GOP goes, I mean, today the GOP is the party of Trump, right? And there's some like Nikki Haley fighting for the soul of that party and making, I think, a fair argument. I'm seeing stories now where she's really chasing the independent vote in New Hampshire. I've gotten two, I think, mailers now about for Nikki Haley here in Virginia. Saw the first Nikki Haley ad during the Eagles game, where really she's making the argument that only she can beat Joe Biden, right? That Donald Trump is going to lose to Joe Biden. Only Nikki Haley can beat Joe Biden. I think that's true. I mean, I think Joe Biden will beat Donald Trump in a one-on-one matchup. It's not going to be a one-on-one matchup, very possibly, but I think her argument is I can win, Donald Trump can't. So two main thoughts there. One, I'm really curious who is the undecided voter that's voting Republican right now, right? Like who is sitting there in the GOP as a primary voter and saying, I don't know, Trump or Haley. Trump, like I don't know who that is, because I feel like they're such completely different candidates. Most people know if they're with one or the other. So I think polling should be interesting and probably pretty accurate, because I think people are pretty firm either being for the former president or not. And I really struggle to think there's somebody that's torn between one of those two candidates. But maybe there are. The undecided voter is always interesting to see. And I'm typically undecided going into the general election. But I think in the primary right now, I was really curious about that. And then as far as the GOP, look, it is the party of Trump, right? I mean, he's owned that party for the last 8-9 years. The thing about it, I think they should stop calling themselves Republicans, right? They're not. It's not really a party supporting the public. You can see Trump supporters openly calling for a dictator, like it'd be a good thing, right? Openly calling for the strong man. There is an alignment of interest. If you look at Trump voters, if you look at some of the newer Republican voters, there is an alignment of interests that are interesting in that they're not typical Republican voters, right? Including some of our Muslim Americans, including some of our Latin Americans, Hispanic Americans, that are sort of lining up, and some of them in support of Trump. Right? Not all, but some. It's interesting because I think there's a support for a stronger centralized leader than there has been in the past. And I would argue that the party of Trump is really an authoritarian party. So call it what it is, right? Call it what it is. We support a centralized, strong man in government. We support heavy-handed government measures. It's not the old Republican Party. It's very distant from the old Republican Party. It's not the party of Reagan or even the party of George H.W. Bush or even George fuck that guy Bush, right? It's none of those guys. It's a different party. Like they should identify who they are, what they're all about, because there are interests in this country, people in this country who agree or don't agree with them, support the approach he's taking. And it's interesting because it's causing some political realignment. I think it's interesting. It's not the old GOP. That party does seem to be dead. I think they're fighting for the soul of that party right now. I think Nikki Haley is fighting for the traditional Republican vote. I just don't know if it's there. I don't know if the traditional Republican is there in enough numbers to give her the win. She's still trailing in New Hampshire. Right now, today, Trump is riding high out of Iowa. It'll be interesting to see, Dave.
Yeah, I find it comical, and you hit on a lot of good points. Is the like the Matt Gateses and all those crew like to call people rhinos, Republican in name only. I think these guys are rhinos. In fact, I think the reverse actually applies, because they call themselves Republicans, but they're not. They don't preach to any of the Republican principles, conservative principles, financial conservatism, any of those areas that so much were part of that party. And it is. I mean, you really look at it, and I think the Lincoln Project, and say what you want about the Lincoln Project, they're anti-Trump, hardcore anti-Trump. They're made up a lot of anti-Trump individuals. They put out a interesting ad just recently. It's circulating around about dictatorships and talking about how had God created the earth, and on the eighth day, the people said this, and God created a dictator. And so and it showed various, obviously, dictators around the world and in history, and then they moved it all to Trump. I think you're absolutely right, and I find it fascinating because I don't think that the people fully understand, um, what he's capable of doing. Because I think, again, if you're really undecided at this point on the Republican side, go back and look. You have 4 years. You have 4 years to look at what Trump did or didn't do. Take his look at his campaign promises, and then look at what he actually did. And it really amounted to not a whole lot. And people can say that he did a lot of wars, or he had no wars during his time. That has nothing to do with Trump, by the way. I mean, he thinks he could stop Ukraine. What do you think? Putin was going to say, "Oh, Trump's in office. He's going to say no to me. I mean, I'm going to just do this anyways." I don't think any of that applies. I think I do disagree with you, though, Andy. I don't think that Biden is capable of beating Trump. I actually don't think that. I think in 2020, Biden was able to mass mobilize the anti-Trump fever, and it was based on COVID too. People were sick of the act. People were sick of a lot of the things that were going on, and they just wanted a change, and so they got out the vote. 4 years later, I just don't think there's the same energy in the Democratic Party. I don't think I think the same people are going to not vote this time that
Yeah.
did vote last time. And I think that is going to impact Biden's numbers. Everyone wants to say that Biden generated such mass mobilization. So did Trump. I mean, he gets his people out to vote. Those people do want to vote, and they've got a chip on their shoulder, and they think Donald Trump represents them. I'm not sure how, because the two are polar opposites. But the demographics for Trump are like super positive. I mean, if you look at college educated voters, him, Nikki Haley, and Ron DeSantis like split that vote, which is unusual. Trump doesn't usually get those college educated voters. Women are still voting predominantly with Trump. Don't ask me why or how you would do this. Veterans are still voting for Trump. Don't ask me why or how you're doing this. Trump doesn't stand for any of those groups, but yet he's mobilizing his vote. But I think, Andy, that probably we could go on and on about this, but I am very discouraged. I haven't voted Republican for quite some time now. And I don't think I can envision doing that moving forward either. I don't love the Democratic options. I wish there was a viable third party. We've been saying that though. So
I mean, that's the reality, and I think that's going to be the question going into this election is, will those third party options get on the ballot and have a fighting chance? I think Americans will be more interested in voting for that option than they have before, right? So we've talked about RFK Jr., we've talked about the No Labels movement, we've talked about the Green Party. If they're able to get on the ballot and obviously say it's a Libertarian Party, if they can do that and present themselves with an option, even if it's a protest vote, right? Even if somebody is voting for the Green Party because they tend to vote Democrat but don't want Biden or whatever, that could be very interesting in what will be a close election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That could cause a disruption and give one or the other, the votes they need to win. It's going to be interesting. There's still a lot to happen here. I personally, I don't think Mr. Trump can get more than 50% of the vote. I don't think he can get more than 47% of the vote. And so it'll be interesting how that plays out, in elections. There's still a long way to go. Still a lot to happen. There's a lot of politics and legal proceedings to go. So it's going to be an interesting season, Dave. All that makes me sick and makes me want to vomit in my own mouth. But there's fair frustration, for voters like you, and I think there might be fair opportunity to look elsewhere and vote elsewhere. And that's what Americans say they want, right? And more than ever, Americans want another option. And almost nobody actually wants, a Trump-Biden rematch, right? It's just nobody wants that. So we'll see, Dave. There's a lot we could talk about here. I know we've got to wrap things up, and I'm sure we'll talk about this plenty more in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And I'm not excited about that at all.
all right, Andy, let's resolve on Friday. We're going to talk a little sports because we want to make predictions, but let's talk other topics. Let's try to take a break from here. We'll talk New Hampshire next week because that primary is next week, but we'll take a break from politics on Friday. We'll bring some new material here. I think we'll get to that point.
I like it.
But Andy, that sounds like a good recap for the week or for the day. I'm going to go downstairs and make sure I don't have another birthday present for me to pack. But anything else, Andy?
Dave, happy birthday to you. Thanks for anybody that's listening this morning, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Happy birthday.
All right, Andy. We'll catch up with you next time.